I have a great sense of déjà vu. Last year we stood here trying to pass the same amendment, and actually our amendment said that the Minister would produce a report within 3 months, and it was amended further by the then Minister for Social Protection, Leo Varadkar, to read that he would produce a report within 6 months. 1 year later, and there's no sign of that report. But I notice, and I will remind everybody, that it was probably because Leo Varadkar was very busy trying to and running a campaign on social welfare as the Minister for Social Welfare, declaring that welfare cheats cheat us all. In fact, pension cheats cheat us all, and that is what he has been guilty of and failed. Within the 10 months after he promised to deliver it, failed to produce a report on this. So I'm all for supporting this amendment and the amendments of all the other deputies to produce this report, but I will not hold my breath. I will not hold my breath that the current Minister, Regina Doherty, or yourself sitting opposite us will actually deliver. I am encouraged, however, by utterings from Regina Doherty which said, I want to see this changed. I am going to deliver on this. I don't have the money now, but I will find it within 12 months, if not sooner. And she acknowledged that the pensioners are protesting and kicking back about this, albeit in much smaller numbers than they did when Fianna Fáil withdrew the medical card from them. But they are beginning to mobilise, and I want to thank all the deputies who came out to the gates to speak to them and to encourage them and to show their solidarity with them over a week ago. But it ain't good enough to say, I will anymore. I'm sorry, I don't believe it. And the proof is in the pudding. And the pudding in this case was Leo Varadkar and his behaviour. Oh, I'm doing this for those who got up early in the morning. And believe you me, I'm coming across so many pensioners who got up early every morning for many, many years in order to be told, when it came to pension age, that they weren't worth the full whack. In fact, that because of the new bans that were brought in as an austerity measure, at the behest of the Troika, encouraged of course by those who are prepared to cooperate with the Troika and bail out the banks at whatever cost, that the austerity measures are impacting now, as has been said, mainly on women but also on men who had worked all their lives and who are now being told you're not worth a full pension, you're going to have to accept less. And it's extraordinary that we can refuse an Apple tax, we can pay millions to lawyers in Europe to ensure that we don't have to accept that Apple tax, but we cannot look after our pensioners, those who worked hard all their lives. And in some cases, and many of the people you met outside the gates last week were testimony to it, not only worked but also reared their family and also looked after the elderly. I want to speak later on to Amendment number 7, which deals especially and particularly with the question of the homemaker. That's slightly separate, although it's been grouped in here. But it does impact bigger again and more profoundly on women than just the making of the bans.
Now, because
you all want to go home to bed.
Any discussion on Amendment 7. So if you wish, you still have 3 minutes, and you can come back in for a further 2 later on. So if you wish to speak on Amendment 7, please do now.
If that's what you wish me to do, not I wish to do. You wish me to do.
Well, I'm just telling you the consequences if you don't.
What? I don't get to speak
at all.
Okay. All right. Thanks for explaining that. I've just lost a minute in the explanation, so I'll take it back. I think that the question of inequality to the pensioners has been very well gone over in this House. All amendments are asking for a report. Minister, can we have that report? Can we not walk away from here to be told, yes, you'll get it, but never get it? I don't know how many times it was raised by various deputies in this House under promised legislation in the course of the year, and still there was no response. But the then Minister could conduct a campaign to ensure that he got the leadership against what he called welfare cheats, most of whom were found not to be cheating at all, were probably overclaiming by error, met much of the time by the staff of the department. And I just want to say, especially about the women who did suffer because they made their homes prior to 1994, it's a bit like saying you were worth something after 1994, but before that you're worthless. although you did the same job. You reared kids, you washed them, you cleaned, you cooked, you socialised them, you looked after their health, you made sure there was another generation of workers there. You made the home and you looked after the elderly, the sick and the disabled. If you do that after 1994, we look after you. If you do it prior to 1994, you can go to hell. And we all know the reason why is because it was carefully mapped out by civil servants and by the Troika that the impact of when people would retire would hit immediately by 2013, 2014 with this measure, whereas for those who retire in 1994, it would be many years before it would hit. And it's all about saving pennies and pence at the behest of ordinary people in order to bail out the banks. No other reason, just in order to bail out the banks. I think there's a longer-term, not conspiracy, but certainly a longer-term ambition by governments to reduce the pension, to reduce the award to people who've worked all their lives, to lengthen their working lives, to force this transitionary pension, this transitionary year taken away from them so people have to sign on the job seekers allowance. A little bit of good news today that public servants can, if they choose, work till they're 70, but that must remain a choice rather than a compulsion. And we would argue that this transitionary pension also has to be restored. Now, I don't know, Minister, if it will be possible to address all of those issues, because I think they all impact on the effect of what happened in 2012. The question of the transitionary pension, people being forced to work longer, having to sign on job seekers, and the issue of being worthless prior to 1994 as a homemaker, but being valued after that. And clearly it's just a mechanism to penalise a sector of society in order to save coffers. And this, I think, has to be utterly condemned. It's a clear case of discrimination on the grounds of gender and age. And as I've said before to Minister Regina Doherty, should we be in a position to take a case to a European court, I have no doubt that, hands down, we would win that. I hope we don't have to do that, but I would encourage all pensioners to help the Minister find the money. Give her a hand. She said she'll find the money sooner than 12 months if possible. Get outside the gate. In the new year, pick a date and protest again. That will help her find the money. She'll then listen, her eyes will open, and somewhere she and the rest of the Cabinet will find the money to adjust this grave injustice.
Thank you, Deputy. Now, next Deputy Joan.